Okay, so I have the recording going, and the voice is okay? The volume?
Yes, Bhante.
Okay. Okay, so we can begin with 3 bows to the Buddha. Okay, 1, 2, 3. And then I'll do one time the salutation. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the fully enlightened one. Okay, so good morning, everybody, and today is June 8th, 2024, and we're continuing our reading of the Anguttara Nikaya, now in something like its 6th year, I think. And we are in the Book of Sixes, and today we'll come to Sutta number 37, which is concerned with the act of giving and with the merit in the act of giving. And that's a topic that I'll have to elaborate upon as we go along. But first, let us look at the text of the sutta. Okay, so on a particular occasion, a female lay follower by the name of, we'll just make it simple, Nanda Mata, the mother of Nanda, had prepared an offering for the Sangha of monks headed by Sariputta and Moggallana. We'll come to the 6 factors. And then with the divine eye, the Blessed One, the Buddha, saw this lay follower named Nanda Mata preparing this offering. And then he explained to the monks, he said that this female lay disciple, Nanda Mata, has prepared this offering for the Sangha. And then he says, now this is the important point, that this offering is possessed of 6 factors. 6 factors that make it especially beneficial or meritorious. Okay, so what are the 6 factors? So there are 3 factors on the part of the donor, the people who are making the offering, and 3 factors on the part of the recipients. In this case, it is the community of the Bhikkhus, led by Sariputta and Moggallana. So what are the 3 factors on the part of the donor? And so basically it's really the same, it's the state of mind of the donor, which is simply distinguished by way of the 3 time periods. So the donor is joyful before giving. So the donor has a mind of generosity that they want to give, they delight in giving. And so when the opportunity for making this offering presents itself, and as the time for making the offering is approaching, then they bring forth a joyful mind. For example, if it's a food offering, often what happens in, say, in the Asian Buddhist countries, if it's going to be a meal offering for a large community, a large group of monastics, people will get up very early. If it's a really large group, sometimes they'll work all night long to prepare the offering. And when they're doing so, they're not grumbling and complaining, why do I have to do this? Those monks do nothing but sit in their rooms, sleeping and indulging themselves, and we have to work so hard to prepare the food, and then we'll have to wash the dishes and clean up the dining hall afterwards. But they're very joyful at this opportunity to make an offering, to prepare an offering. Okay, so one has a joyful mind before giving, in preparing for the gift, in preparing for the act of giving, and anticipation of the arrival of the recipients. And then in the act of giving, while one is giving the gift, one has what here is described as a placid, confident mind. And this will be, it's also a joyful mind, but the mind is calm. And the word confident indicates that one has, call it, trust, faith, and devotion. In this case, it's an offering to the monastic community. So it's a mind of trust and confidence and faith in the monastic community. But even if one is giving a gift, let us say a gift to a beggar on the street, one does so with a placid, confident mind, trusting in the opportunity to make a gift that will alleviate the suffering of others and that will bring some benefit to others. And then the third factor is that one is elated after giving. So after one has given the gift, and if it's a large dana offering in the traditional Buddhist way, this is when, say, the monastics have left, one's finished. After that, the lay people take their meal, and then they'll wash the dishes and clean up the dining hall. Then after that, one reflects on the act of giving, and one generates joy. Again, one generates joy in the mind, and that joy will uplift the mind, will fill it with happiness and even with bliss. And so the practice of giving in this way can actually become a channel or a means for developing samadhi, because this joy, I just want to see what the Pali words. Yeah, different Pali words are used, but basically what this will mean is that one is giving rise to the qualities of pamoja, which is kind of joy, which turns, when it becomes strong, it turns into piti, and that piti can bring sukha, happiness or bliss, and then that can lead to samadhi. So that joy could even become, as I said, the joy that comes from giving can become a means of developing samadhi. And one of the recollections in the set of the 6 recollections is called Chaganusati, the recollection of generosity. So this is recollecting, it could be an individual act of giving, but generally what is intended is one's habitual disposition towards the practice of giving, one's generous temperament or disposition. And so when you recollect the act of generosity, the practice of generosity, that brings joy, which turns into uplifting rapture or elation and bliss and samadhi. Okay, so these 3 factors on the part of the donor make the act of giving very potent or powerful in terms of its karmic capacity and in terms of its capacity to bring about upliftment of the mind, the elevation of the mind. But then there are 3 factors on the part of the recipients And here, as a monk, I have to cringe and look a little bit shameful. So what are the three factors of the recipients? Okay, the ideal, the recipients are devoid of lust, devoid of hatred, and devoid of delusion. That means that the ideal recipients will be arahants, those who have completely eradicated and destroyed lust or greed, hatred, and ignorance or delusion. And so in this case, it's the Sangha of monks headed by Sariputta and Moggallana. So Sariputta and Moggallana certainly are arahants, and probably there are quite a number of members of their following who are arahats with lust, hate, and delusion destroyed. But there's a kind of escape clause here, a sort of, what's the expression when you relax a tight regulation? So those...
Loophole.
Excuse me? Somebody spoke, but... Okay. Okay, so one is practicing to remove lust, practicing to remove hatred, practicing to remove delusion. And so this can include, this is a very broad description, which can range from those who are on the path to arahatship, then going down to non-returners, once-returners, stream enterers, and then the commentary says that even a newly ordained novice who has undertaken the practice, initiated the practice, can be said to fit into this description, because the reason why they undertake the practice is for the purpose of removing lust, hatred, and delusion. So we could say, in this case, the ideal recipients from the traditional Buddhist point of view would be monastics who are of pure sila, who are established in good sila, moral conduct, and who are devoting themselves to the practice of the teaching, trying to develop samatha and vipassana, calm and insight, in order to eliminate lust, hatred, and delusion. So those are the three factors on the part of the recipients. And so in this way, that act of giving possesses 6 factors: the 3 factors of the donor, giving with joy before, with confidence during the act of giving, and then generating joy after the act of giving. And the 3 factors, those are the 3 factors of the donor, and then the 3 factors of the recipients. And so in that way, the act of giving or the offering possesses 6 factors. And then the text continues, it is not easy to measure the merit of such an offering, with the idea that the stream of merit is just so much, stream of the wholesome, the nutriment of happiness. But rather it is reckoned simply as an incalculable, immeasurable great mass of merit. And it's not just as, it's not easy to measure the water in the great ocean. There are many gallons of water, or so many gallons of water, so many hundreds of gallons, so many thousands of gallons of water in the ocean, so many millions of gallons of water. But the ocean is considered just a measureless great mass of water. And so when the offering, the gift, possesses those 6 factors, it's not easy to measure the merit of that gift, but it's reckoned simply as an immeasurable, a measureless great mass of merit. And then there are some verses attached which just repeat the same thing. Okay, but what I want to dwell on a bit, just come to the last verse here. That says that having performed such a deed of charity with a mind freed from miserliness, the wise person, rich in faith, is reborn in a happy, non-afflictive world. So that kind of merit is said, sort of the direct result of that kind of merit is rebirth in a happy world. That would be a world, probably in this case, one of the lower deva worlds, the world of the devas, of the gods, the lower heavenly worlds. And what needs a little elaboration is the concept of merit. And to this end, I've collected first a number of short suttas which speak about merit. And then first let me elaborate and explain what is meant by merit. So the Pali word that we translate as merit is punya, or also can be spelled punya. And merit, in brief, is wholesome karma, that is action stemming from, we would say, non-greed, non-hatred, and non-delusion, or more positively, action motivated by generosity, kindness, and performed with wisdom, at least with the right view of karma and its fruits. But when the texts speak about merit, they look at this wholesome karma from a particular point of view, and that point of view, and I would say it's a somewhat limited point of view. It's the point of view of wholesome karma to produce results that are considered desirable, that are considered agreeable, desirable, and beneficial from a mundane point of view, usually from a mundane point of view. That is the capacity of wholesome karma to lead to such desired results as a long lifespan, good health, ayu, vanu, physical beauty, happiness, and taking in some modern ideas, good employment opportunities, good educational opportunities, of course, wealth, we have health,
intelligence.
Good marriage, maybe.
yeah, intelligence, sort of an innate intelligence. Somebody said something else?
Good relationship, marriage, or
Yeah,
something.
exactly. Good, fulfilling relationships. I think you get the idea. We could go on expanding this.
I think the most important thing is to meet the Dhamma.
Exactly. I was going to come to that.
Like you, Guru.
That is super mundane.
Wait, I'm
You're
coming.
talking of mundane, right?
Okay, I'll sit in the chair with the student. Yeah, first I'm dealing with the mundane benefits. So I think we have enough to see the mundane benefits, but then there are, let us say, spiritual benefits. And of course, the first one would be the encounter with the Dhamma. Then we would say opportunities to learn the Dhamma. Well, before that,
Dhamma, good, right teacher.
yeah, first
Right.
meeting good friends, good spiritual friends, kalyana mita, encountering good teachers, opportunities, and then through good friends, encountering good teachers, opportunity to learn the Dhamma, then chance to go forth into the homeless life. That's considered the fruit of merit. And then progress along the path is one of the benefits that come from merit. Like you have, with a meditation retreat, maybe 100 people, and some people maybe who've not meditated before, they just sit down, and sometimes they quickly make progress in developing samadhi and insight. Other people meditate for many years and they make very, very slow progress with a lot of difficulty. That is related to merit. And then at the highest level come the attainments, all the ways from the jhanas and insight knowledges to fruits of the path and the attainment of arhatship, Pacceka Buddhahood, and Bodhi, the attainment of supreme enlightenment of a Buddha. So those who are following the path of bodhisattvas have to accumulate such vast, inconceivable accumulations of merits in order to attain Buddhahood. But of course, merit on its own is not sufficient, but the merit also has to be balanced by another sort of essential constituent, and that is wisdom, knowledge, understanding. And so when the Buddha is called Vijacharana Sampanno, the one who possesses Vija, higher knowledge, and Charana, good conduct, we could say that Vija represents his accumulation of wisdom during his practice as a bodhisattva, and the Charana is the fulfillment of his practice of meritorious deeds. And so all who aspire for the fruits of the path, they have to accumulate merits, but merit is on its own is not enough, but one also has to accumulate wisdom and knowledge. But you could also, from another angle, we could consider cultivating wisdom and knowledge to be a kind of meritorious deed, with the emphasis on non-delusion. Okay, then to bring out the idea of merit, I took a few suttas. These are verses from the Samyutta Nikaya, the Kosala Samyutta, chapter 3. So the text says, for one who desires long life and good health, beauty, heaven, and noble birth. Don't forget, this is the Indian caste system, and various other kinds of delights in succession. The wise praise diligence in doing meritorious deeds. And then the wise person who is diligent obtains both kinds of good, the good visible in this very life. So you get that merit can ripen in this life itself and bring various kinds of desirable benefits. And also the good of the future life, rebirth under good conditions, rebirth back into the human realm under, let's say, secure, peaceful conditions and in an environment where you have the chance to encounter the Dhamma. Even if, say, like myself, born into New York City in the mid-1940s, almost no Buddhism available then, but maybe through the mysterious working of some past karma in the bookshop of Brooklyn College, I found some books on Buddhism. And then a few years later in graduate school, I met a Buddhist monk from Vietnam. And I bring up the example of my friend Bhante Rakita, born in Uganda, in East Africa of all places. But then he goes on a trip to India. Actually, he goes to study in India, to study business management, I think. And there, along the streets of one of the cities, he sees some Thai Buddhist monks, and that forms his connection to Buddhism. And then as time goes on, he becomes more deeply immersed in the Dhamma and then becomes ordained as a monk. And now he's established a Buddhist monastery and Dhamma center near Entebbe. It's a city in Uganda. And he has many young people, both men and women, become monks and nuns under him. So it's like incredible, So this is the working of, if we could see the karmic forces at work, we could see that this is the unfolding of merits. And so the steadfast one, by attaining the good, is called a person of wisdom.
Bhante,
Yeah.
would it be possible you elongate the screen so I can read more lines at a time? Elongate? I can see 5 lines currently.
Oh, I see. To extend it down.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So here, there's another sutta, another verse. It says, grain, wealth, silver, gold, whatever possessions there are, slaves. We have to remember this is India in the 5th century BC. So there was, sad to say, but there was a slave system there. Workers, messengers, and those who live as one's dependents. So all of this must be left behind when death comes. You can't take any of that with you. So what do you take when you die? Whatever one has done by body, speech, or mind, that is truly one's own. That is one's karma, good or bad. So that is what one takes when one goes. That is what follows along. Whoops. That is what follows along like a shadow that never departs. And so then the conclusion comes, therefore one should do what is good as a collection for the future life. Then come these important lines, merits are the support for living beings when they arise in the other world. It's not like a matter that you want to accumulate merits in order to become rich and famous and powerful, but we have to recognize that we are sort of tied up in the cycle of repeated birth and death, and we want to ensure, as long as we go on, that we achieve a good, happy rebirth, reborn under good, satisfactory conditions, and that we obtain both those mundane benefits and also the spiritual benefits. And so merits are the support for that in the other world. Yeah, and then there's a sutta where the Buddha is addressing even the monks, and he says, don't be afraid of merit. Merit is a designation for happiness. Then he explains how for a long time, he says, I experienced the desirable result of merit that he made over a long time. For 7 years, he cultivated a mind of loving kindness, the metta. And then as a result of that, for 7 aeons, he didn't come back to this world, but he was reborn in the realm of streaming radiance that's part of the Brahma world, or actually it's above the Brahma world. And then when this world was taking shape again, evolving, he says, I was reborn in an empty mansion of Brahma, and then he became Brahma, the great Brahma. And then many times he was Sakka, ruler of the gods, and hundreds of times he was a universal monarch, a righteous king who ruled by the Dhamma. So that was all supposedly the fruit of the Buddha's past practice during his career as he's still in the worldly life, but maybe as a bodhisattva, developing the mind of loving kindness. And so how does one practice merit? So the Buddha says here that there are 3 bases for acquiring merit. So there's the basis of merit that consists in giving, the basis of meritorious activity that consists in virtuous behavior, that is in acting in accordance with the precepts, and the basis of meritorious activity that consists in bhavana, in meditative development. And probably from the standpoint of merit, the meditations that would be sort of the most potent sources of merit will be what I would think would be the recollections of the 3 jewels, the recollection of the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, and the Brahma Viharas. Those would be the most potent sources of mundane merit. But the meritorious activity leading most directly towards liberation would be the development of vipassana, of insight knowledge. And then the sutta continues by explaining the fruits of merit, different types of merit developed to different levels. One thing that becomes very common in Buddhism, let me just say also that the suttas mention these 3 bases of merit, but later texts, the later commentaries expand the ways, means of cultivating merit into a set of 10 bases for merit. So the first 3 are, again, giving, observing precepts, and meditation. I didn't review them before the class. Let me see if I could remember them. Okay, 1 is service, performing acts of service to others, acts to benefit others by serving them in various ways. And another is respect or veneration, showing respect to others. And in a monastic context, this would mean like showing respect and veneration towards the Buddha by doing bowing to the Buddha and reciting verses of praise to the Buddha, showing respect to the monastics, and in traditional Indian culture, showing respect towards one's parents, elders, and teachers, even secular teachers. Okay, so service, respect, then rejoicing in the merits of others. So when others are doing meritorious deeds, you rejoice in those merits. And then the counterpart of that is sharing one's own merits with others, which we do usually at the end of our classes with the verses akasata chabumata. Okay, then come The last three are more directly concerned with developing the wisdom aspect. One is listening to the Dhamma. The next is teaching the Dhamma. And then the 10th is correcting one's understanding. That is, through study, inquiry, and reflection, one tries to correct one's understanding, to tune up or hone one's view, one's right view, so that one gets a deeper and clearer right view. So those are the 10 bases of merit. Now, it's very common, I have to say, in Buddhist countries or in Buddhist tradition, for people to do meritorious deeds with the idea of, oh, I'm going to acquire so much merit, and wow, as a result of that merit, I'm going to get such great and wonderful benefits in the future. I'll be reborn in the highest heavenly worlds, or I'll become so rich and so famous and so powerful. And even I've heard that people keep little merit books where they write in, a little bit like you have in one drawer in your cabinet, you have your bank book where you keep your bank account. And then next to it, you have your merit account, your merit book, where you write down your meritorious deeds. And even maybe in some traditions, they assign numerical value to certain acts of merit. This kind of merit gets 10. This one gets a 9. This one, I'm sorry, you only get 3. This is worth 1. And just this morning, I came across unexpectedly a statement from the Jewish philosopher named Martin Buber on atheists. But this must be an excerpt from his writing. And this is something that really resonated with me. A rabbi was asked by one of his students, why did God create atheists? And then the rabbi paused, and then he responded in a soft voice. He said, God created atheists to teach us the most important lesson of all, the lesson of true compassion. Because when an atheist performs an act of charity, if they visit somebody who is sick, or help someone in need, when they show some care for the world, they're not doing so because of some religious teaching. The atheist doesn't believe that God commanded him to perform this act, and he doesn't think, oh, if I do this act, then God is going to reward me with some good fortune or lift me up and bring me to heaven. In fact, the atheist, as an atheist, doesn't believe in God at all. And I would put in brackets here, so the atheist doesn't believe in the law of karma. So they perform their good actions based on their sense of morality. They do the good actions out of kindness, and simply because they feel that this is the right thing to do. And so the rabbi says, when somebody reaches out to you for help, you shouldn't say, I'll pray that God will help you, but you should, at that moment, you should become an atheist and imagine there's no God who's going to help, but just say, I will help you. And then I would add, and go ahead and help the person, not thinking that you're going to get some reward. And so maybe today, if somebody asks, maybe we say, why should we who are religious Buddhists respect the secular Buddhists who don't believe in karma and rebirth? Then I would say, because the secular Buddhists say that we should act ethically because ethical action is good, not because one expects to get some reward through the working of the law of karma. Okay, maybe that could take care of our basic presentation, and so we could see if there are any questions or comments. Let me just get... Okay, so the way to ask a question is through... Okay, I see already. So this will be Vandana Lal.
Yeah, good morning, Bhante. Thank you for the teaching. So I'm just trying to understand it more clearly, because in the Mahayana tradition, what I learned, that there is no giver, there is no receiver, and there is no gift to be given. So basically pointing towards detachment towards any good deed you do. So I'm just wondering that if you are having these all feeling good before, feeling good, giving, and after effect, then you are clinging to that merit, what you're making. So for me, it's better, like you just mentioned about the rabbi said, like detachment towards just do it anyways, right? So that's what I learned in the Zen Center, that there is no giver, there is no receiver, there is no item to be given. So that makes more sense to me rather than rejoicing, because when you start doing that, you're kind of clinging to that deed you just done.
Yeah,
So what do you?
okay, so what I would say is that approach that you just mentioned is conjoining the act of giving or the practice of giving with wisdom or with insight wisdom. And I say that you could do that as a kind of reflection, though the way it's set out in the Prajnaparamita Sutras, it's intended for those who've already gained the deep insight into shunyata, into emptiness. But I would say, first of all, maybe two things to say. First of all, that the instruction on generating the mind of joy before, during, and after the act of giving could be intended for those who have not yet generated that wisdom of non-self or emptiness, and so who are not yet capable of applying that. So to strengthen the wholesome quality of the act of giving, one would, a person at that level, the more elementary level, is not yet ready to contemplate the act of giving by way of non-self or selflessness. And so they strengthen the wholesome potency of the act of giving by generating joy during the 3 time periods. So that's the first thing. Then the second thing is, I don't see that the two are necessarily contradictory, that one could also be joyful through the 3 stages of the act of giving, while at the same time being able to see into the act of giving, or to being able to contemplate the act of giving through the lens of non-self or emptiness. Yeah, so the two are not necessarily opposed to each other. One could join them together.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you so much for explaining.
Okay, so next we'll take Helen.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm just struggling with, I liked Martin Buber's quote quite a bit. And I thought, he's pointing out the idea of giving for no reason at all, giving for no reward, as you said, and it seems like the Buddhist idea of merit is to gain something, which isn't typical of Buddhist teachings, like it's usually not about gaining or striving, it's about, being in the moment, being present. So I'm just sort of struggling with that, how to sort of respect that idea of merit as something to get you somewhere.
Well, I think it's not actually the case that the Buddha's teaching is all concerned with simply being mindful of the moment, because what I say is that the practice of Dhamma has to be seen against this broad cosmic background and in the light of the laws or principles that govern the unfolding of events in the light of that cosmic background. And so the principle relevant here is that we migrate from life to life in this cycle of repeated birth and death, which is samsara. And that is, from the standpoint of the Buddha's teaching, that is a fundamental reality, a fundamental fact. You know, the Buddha's enlightenment involved his recollection of his own past lives and the divine eye by which he saw how living beings pass away and take rebirth in accordance with their karma. And you know, the principle that governs the cycle of rebirth is, in fact, the law of karma. And as people or living beings are caught up within this cycle of rebirth, we want to ensure, as I said, that we meet with the good conditions. And the Dhamma shows us how to obtain those desirable conditions. You know, the ones that we mentioned, what were those ones? All of these little boxes get in the way. Okay, so I think we would generally like to live fairly long lives. Maybe we don't want to go into the late 90s or hundreds, but to live into the mid 80s or even early 90s, to have good health, to be beautiful. If one is a young person setting out in life, to have good job opportunities, even earlier, get a good education, to be fairly wealthy, to have innate intelligence, fulfilling relationships, and so on. So those are things that we want in the mundane dimension of our life. So what are the underlying causes that bring the achievement of those goods? That is merit. And so the way to sort of lay the foundation for them is by doing meritorious deeds. So from one level, that is one of the aims of the Buddha's teaching, is to have a happy and fulfilling life in this existence itself, and to create the conditions for a good rebirth. And then for gaining liberation, the ultimate goal, we have to have an encounter with the Dhamma, to meet good spiritual friends, good teachers, to have chances to learn the Dhamma, to make progress along the path, and to reach the higher attainments. And so the contributing factor for all of those, merit is a contributing factor for all of those. So I think it's I would say, a rather narrow perspective on Buddha's teaching to say that it's all about simply being in the moment. That is maybe a key to particular types of meditation, but not the whole of the Buddha's teaching.
Well, I guess also, though, I thought the goal of this life is to learn renunciation. The goal of this
Okay,
life
to learn
is learning renunciation.
Yeah, the thing is that one obtains these benefits, but when the character becomes strong enough, then when the wisdom becomes sharp enough, then one is able to renounce them.
Okay. I'll let it go.
And even if one remains, let us say, in fact, this is what the Buddha does teach also. He says that one does meritorious deeds for the purpose of obtaining these benefits, but then one has the wisdom that sees into their deficiency, their drawbacks, and is able to inwardly relinquish them. So even speaking to Anathapindika, who is like a banker, a financier of ancient India, maybe the equivalent of a millionaire today, or maybe not quite a billionaire, but he says you can enjoy like all of the enjoyments of worldly life, but you see into their drawbacks and you inwardly relinquish them. Okay, we'll have to take
Thank you.
more questions. So Gita comes next.
Thank you, Bhante. Thank you for all your teachings. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu first. And then, Bhante, I have just one question. When Buddhajanan Mahanse was Sumedha, he made an aspiration in front of the Dipankara Buddha that he wants to be a Samma Sambuddha. So if we, in our lifetime, meet an Arahant or someone that's removed to be Arahant who's extremely virtuous, and you think that they've attained path and fruit, and we make an offering or dana, can we too make an aspiration to end this cycle of suffering and to gain path and fruit in this very lifetime? Like, can we dedicate those merits that we earn towards our awakening in the noble path? If you're not aspiring to be a Samma Sambuddha or Pacheka Buddha, but if you want to become like at least awaken, enter the path and secure your seat, right?
Yeah,
Can you do that, Bhante?
Yeah, you can dedicate any meritorious deed to that end, to that goal. It's not the case that you have to do the meritorious deed in relation to a person who's an arhat, though that would, of course, that will bring a stronger accumulation of merit. But
yes.
Usually we do like any kind of meritorious deed at the end, say, of a meditation session or recitation of the Vandana gathas and so on. Often we do like idang me punyang, idang me punyakamang asava kayavahang hotu, sabaduka pamuchatuti. So through the power of this meritorious deed, may all my defilements be destroyed and may I be liberated from suffering.
Yeah, because aside from sharing with everybody around you, visible and invisible beings and all your, all your relatives who have passed away, but to dedicate a portion of that merit that you have done towards your own awakening, because getting out of samsara is the main goal.
Okay, but we have a number of other people.
Okay, Bhante, thank you, Bhante.
Do the meritorious deed of giving others a chance to ask their questions. Okay, Debbie Gerritsen.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the teachings, Bhante. If I might, I'd like to ask you a question about language, about Pali. I'm trying to study it, and this passage here about let's see, practicing, right? What is it? I'm trying to find the passage right now. When recipients are free of greed, hate, and delusion, or practicing to be free of them.
Yeah.
The Pali is patipanna.
Yeah.
But what's confusing to me is that that's strictly speaking a past participle, right? Even though we're translating this as a present form, a meaning of in the present tense. Is this very common? Is this something I can expect to find?
Yeah, I don't know whether it's very common, but there are cases of past participles that are used pretty much in the sense of as if they were, these past participles that are used as if they were present participles with a kind of present participle sense.
Right.
Yeah, there's let's see, Nisino, when somebody is sitting down.
Right, okay.
It's just like in English, we could say that either that they're seated or sitting.
Right.
Pali, it's seated, but used in the sense of that they're sitting. And then there's tito, which is a past participle, stood, but it's used with the present sense that they're standing. And it's similar with patipanno.
Right, because I had imagined it to myself as they have been practicing, and this is a sort of ongoing process.
Yeah, but they are in the process of practicing.
Right, thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, next is Panyadipa Tan.
Thank you so much, Bhante. Just thinking about, you're talking about the merits are usually quite mundane, the benefits that one's get, out upon ripening of the merit. But I heard that there's a kind of like I would say synonyms to merits, which is called parami, or parameter, which is like kind of merits that would help us to attain the ultimate goal of nirvana. They call it the parami. So this parami might be more desirable than just like getting the mundane benefits that sort of like embedded in the meaning of merit.
Yeah, there's a kind of overlap between the idea of merit and the parami. What's a little puzzling is that in the text of early Buddhism, there's no mention of the practice of parami, though that idea does enter maybe in Buddha Vangsa, which is part of the smaller collection.
Maybe in the Vata Sutta as well.
Excuse me?
In the Vata Sutta, there is one such a parami, right?
In the
Vata Sutta, one of the chanting, like
Vata Sutta.
Parita chanting that we have, the Vata Sutta.
Yeah, I don't remember. What is the Vata Sutta?
That's the parami in one of the Parita suttas has been the Theravada countries
coming from the Khuddaka Nikaya, a somewhat later period.
Kutta Nikaya.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
So the way I understand the difference, the distinction, that from meritorious deeds are considered primarily from the standpoint of their ability to bring mundane benefits, whereas those same deeds, when they're done as paramis, then they're considered from the standpoint of their ability to lead to the higher attainments, to the fruits of the path, or the status of Arhat, Pacceka Buddha, or fully enlightened Buddha.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And then one of the one of the common practices in Theravada countries, usually they do keep the record of whichever merits, I think the great merits that have done to the Sangha especially. And that is meant to be recited. And during the deathbed, it's a sort of like facilitating their wholesome thought at the very critical period of passing away. So I think that's sort of like the norms why they have to write down all the merits they've done before they're getting old.
Yeah. Okay, I have to move on now with the question because there are a couple more we have to finish. Okay, so next is Jeffrey.
Thank you, Bhante.
Jeffrey Smith.
Thank you for the opportunity, Bhante.
Yeah, you have to get closer to your microphone.
Oh, can you hear me now?
I could hear you. It's a little faint, but go on.
Okay, now it's better, right?
A little bit.
So I have a couple of questions, but let me ask you the first one that three thoughts during the time, before the giving and after the giving, those are to be ideal.
I'm not. Are you hearing so clearly? Do you hear me?
Free from hatred, delusion, and lust.
Yeah.
Those are the three things ideally have to be there in those three throws, right? Before, after, during, and after to be trihetuka.
Yeah, I could hear the voice, but I can't distinguish the words so clearly. I don't know if you could increase the volume.
Yeah, I increased the volume.
Wait, Jason is going to increase the volume here.
Okay, I appreciate it.
You
Is
hear
it better now? Is it better now?
Okay, now much better.
Okay. So the three thoughts previous at the Munchana and the past about the giving, that purification of those three to be trihetuka, it should be free from hatred, greed, and delusion, right? Yeah, that's when the really big happiness happens. So that's what they meant. And also the asana, keeping a track of the good merits is good to strengthen the asana karma, which is if you don't have garga karma to be born in the next life, asana karma, achinna karma is the one that you can think of and read. Somebody can read and remind you the kind of merits that you did.
Yeah.
And the other one, Bhante, about the rabbis thing, it is that that somebody can get mistakenly and think that, okay, this means that we don't have to believe in karma and just when you do it, you just don't think about karma. That could make somebody like a non-believer of karma and have very dangerous consequences. And so that's the concern that I have.
Yeah, I think, of course, the texts always say that when you do the wholesome deeds, once you do so, conjoin with an understanding of cause and effect, or karma and its result. But I think the point of that passage from Martin Buber is that the motivation for doing the good deed should be not that one is sort of selfishly and with a clinging mind sort of trying to do good deeds for the purpose of getting personal benefits for oneself, but one does those deeds motivated by compassion and for the sake of helping and benefiting others, because that is what is right. Okay, I'm going to have to be quickly. Yeah, I could only take now one more question, and then we'll have to end because we have to go up for the meal. And this is from V.
Thank you, Bhante. I have two questions, sorry.
Please take only the one more important question.
Oh, okay. Recently, I mean, in our so-called community, I have identified a lightning rod. It's actually on the floor. So I actually pointed out to the management committee, and wasn't happy. When I dig deeper, there's a potential commercial breach of trust. So a lot of people will get involved, and in the sense that they may have to go to jail. So under this context, because of the safety for the community, how do one is going to balance between a commercial, it's a breach of trust of not maintaining the community wealth, and on the other hand, it's basically cause danger to the entire community. So how does one to be compassionate and not to cause trouble? Because I mean, this is part of giving.
Yeah, if I understand the situation, I'm not sure that I do, but you have to take the action which is going to protect the community from any kind of danger, harm or danger.
Yes. Right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, we're going to have to end now because we have to go up. Okay, so now that I've explained the workings of merit, now we're going to do the dedication or sharing of the merits. So when we had the meditation, the first part of the class, then we do the teaching of the Dhamma, listening to the Dhamma, discussing the Dhamma. So these all create accumulations of merit. And now the important point is that we don't sort of cling to that merit as our personal possession, but now we're going to share the merit by inviting the Dhamma-protecting devas and the nagas and other spirits to rejoice in our merits, and by rejoicing in those merits, to protect the Dhamma, to protect the teachers, and to protect the population of the world. Okay, so I'll recite the verses in Pali. Akasata chabumata deva naga mahidika punyantam anumoditva chirang rakantu sasanang. Akasata chabumata deva naga mahidika punyantam anumoditva chirang rakantu desanang. Akasata chabumata deva naga mahidika punyanta manumoditva chirang rakantu mang parang. And then the benevolent wishes, dukkha pata chani dukkha, Baya patajani baya, soka patajani soka, hantu sabe pipanino. May those in suffering be free from suffering. May those in fear be free from fear. May those in sorrow be free from sorrow. May all living beings also be thus. And then we're going to do three bows to the Buddha to end the program. Okay, so we can stand up. Okay.
And a bow to Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante.
Okay, so thank you all
Thank you,
for joining
Bhante.
today.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante. Theruvan Sarnai. Namo Buddhaya.
Thank you very
Have a
much.
good
Good
lunch,
lunch,
Bhante.
Bhante.
Have a
Good
good
lunch to
lunch,
you,
Bhante.
Be safe,
Thank you
be
so
well,
much.
Bhante.
Thank
Be
you.
safe and be well.
Thank you
Love
very
you all
much,
too,
Bhante.
Bhante.
Your teaching.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante.
Bye, everybody.